Hey guys, what's up? It's Ryan Alford and Riley Clark, I might add.
Yes.
Hey Riley. Here on today's episode of the Radcast, we're continuing a multi-part series on eSports, all things eSports, gaming, and really excited to have in Itamar Benedy, the CEO and founder of Anzu.io. What's up? How are you?
Yeah, I'm good. I'm great. Thank you for having me here.
Excited to have you on. So, being a quasi marketing and business podcast, as we talked a little pre-episode, Itamar, it's nice to have something a little maybe mainstream down the line on the marketing and advertising side for esports with, your ad platform, which I know we'll get into. So we're excited to maybe talk a little more marketing shop than we've been we've been talking real broad esports and the opportunity and really the growth of esports, but excited to kind of get into it and hear what all you've been up to.
Yeah, and esports is getting tremendous, traction in the last years from brands and even like brands investing in esport teams, investing in leagues, but someone needs to deal with the business model, right?
That's right. So, well, let's start there. Itamar, let's start. Maybe give us a little bit about your career journey. Your experience in esports, and then maybe that'll build us up to kind of where you're at today.
Sure, sounds good. So, hi everyone. I'm Itamar, the founder and the CEO of Anzu, and long love-hate relationship with the advertising landscape. Started basically on the early days of when the App Store was launched. We were building advertising and monetization solutions dedicated for mobile. We saw that mobile was a new platform that the rules from web and from cookies could not really apply. So took advantage of that very fast growing market in the last years. And something like 4 years ago, we spotted that there is a need for something new, a new business model for game developers. Esport was just starting to rise, but there was some questions about how exactly will that work. And then brands on the other side were looking at new ways to engage with audiences, and because a lot of the eyeballs from audiences moved to platforms like Netflix, where there's no advertising model, and people started to watch less and less TV. So that was really how we took our previous experience and really connected it with this opportunity in the market and basically founded Anzu.
Love it. So let's talk about exactly what Anzu is and what you're both already accomplished and where you're kind of headed with the platform. It's all about, I guess there's multiple layers, but at its core, it's going to be like a programmatic type ad solution within the gaming environment of different games. So you work with both the developers and then the marketers that want to run ads. Am I summarizing correctly, or fill in the blanks a little?
I mean, this is perfect. If you want to join us to pitch to clients, we would be honored. So, I mean, the way we look at Anzu is that for game developers, this is a new business model. So bringing authentic native advertising, and the way we see it is that advertising should not be a trade-off with bad user experience. People don't hate ads, people hate bad ads. And if we can bring in like an ad experience that respects the gamer, respects the gameplay, basically exactly how we consume content in real world. So for example, think about a billboard inside the game, a logo on a t-shirt, a poster on a wall. The outcome of it will be, number one, the community will accept it and will prefer it. Number two, bigger games that didn't monetize and put ads until now for the first time will be happy to do that. And number three, we're the first company in the world to bring those monetization and programmatic capabilities also for the console games and not only for mobile games. So that's like from a game developer, how we look at this. And like we saw cases of games that put its fake ads to make the game more realistic. We tell them, hey, earn money from it. Or like if there's a billboard with a sign Hilton left, like a hotel left, put Hilton there, right? And from a marketer perspective, it's a new advertising category. So it's a way to reach hard to reach audiences and scale. Because when we looked at the gaming landscape, we saw a really good environment for brands. The scale of how many people play games of course, the eSport rise, how brand safe and authentic and the environments look like. But it was about how do we make it easy for brands to work with us, and that's where programmatic helps. And second, how do we help brands to get confidence around the media value and the effectiveness of that?
Yeah, that's great. So does it start with, it seems like then it starts with the games. I'm curious about the mechanics, owning a digital agency and doing a lot of programmatic, on the internet and things like that. Trying to wrap my head, and I'm sure our listeners would love to understand without getting into any proprietary nature of anything, but the mechanics of, are you working with, I would imagine, the consoles, and I'm going to focus just on console gaming right now. Sure. The console versus the game developer, because I imagine there's got to be a two parts there, because you probably, if you're serving programmatic, you've got the internet feeding the game, but the game has to be developed in a way to accept that, right?
Yeah. So I mean, there is 3 layers of how we look at that. First, there is the layer of the platform. Xbox, PlayStation, PC, mobile, VR, cloud gaming, and we support all the platforms. And then there is the layer of the engine. So like the game engine of the platform, if it's Unreal or Unity or companies with their own game engine. And then third, there is the actual content owner, the game developer or the publisher, depends on the structure. And basically, so we partner with the game developers, but we have business deals and we support all the layers of the engines in the platforms.
Got it. Are there only certain games right now that are able to display this type of advertising, like in-game on the console level? Is it a certain game?
So I mean, there's two ways to look at this. Number one, from a platform perspective. So for example, Nintendo don't allow advertising on the platform. Like in terms of their terms and condition, but it's funny because they allow porn content on their platform, right? But I guess that will change over time as more and more games move to free to play and are looking for new business models. So there is some blockers from the platforms. That's number one. Number two, there are some games like maybe very fantasy games that ad experiences are not very blended, authentic. So there's no really a lot of good ways of how to put the ads to make sense from a gamer, from a community perspective. So that's number two. And number three, there is, very violent games that maybe the brands will be a bit concerned about advertising in those games. But removing those 3 limitations, there's a quite big business here. We predict the addressable market for all platforms like console, mobile, and eSports combined, 25 billion a year. So a lot of opportunities.
Yeah. So for instance, I have 4 boys under the age of 11, and so they all play Fortnite, and amongst other things. Now, is that kind of a walled garden as big as the franchise as Fortnite is? Like, should we expect to see programmatic ads within Fortnite?
Yeah. So I mean, every second marketer I meet tells me, "Hey, this is really cool. Can I start with Fortnite?" and of course, with Fortnite, it will take time. I mean, it's a big company, and that's maybe not the first company to adopt new technologies.
Yeah.
But the way we see it is that before our solution, the only way to advertise in console games was what we call hard-coded deals. So, for example, if you play the FIFA game, you see some brands in the environment. But the thing is that first, it's very expensive to do these campaigns. And very few games and very few brands can do these deals. Once you launch the version of the game, the content cannot change. So there's no programmatic, no analytics, no personalization. And the joke about those deals is that the only data the brand gets for the game is the invoice. And what we are here to do is to make it very affordable, to make it very accessible. So with small campaign spend and with a connection to Google and to all the media buying platforms. So no integration needed, no special creation of creatives. We can start campaigns and get really good media value in the sense of what's like exactly the opportunity and should the brand invest more? How can the brand compare advertising in our environment versus other environments? So that's basically what we're bringing here from a marketer perspective.
With the, I'm curious, with the growth of the company, are there any partnerships that like you're particularly proud of that you're able to like talk about on the podcast with us?
Of course. So we recently launched with Ubisoft Trackmania, a big partnership. And, Trackmania is a very known franchise and in like a very, like a high-end game, a AAA game, which has a lot of, really good placements for brands to advertise. So from a game developer perspective, that's a deal we're very happy about. And there's tremendous excitement for marketers.
Oh, absolutely.
In general, we signed 14 exclusive deals with console game developers for like 2-3 years to basically be able to sell their media. So like game developers like a Lion Castle and ABP Reloaded and Toplitz and Vivid and Ubisoft Trackmania. So this makes like this, the volume and the inventory ready for marketers. And then from a brand perspective, we announced big deals with Vodafone, with PepsiCo, with American Eagle, with Samsung. So
wow.
Big brands and big games are already part of the platform.
Oh yeah.
Is what would be like the most popular US played game that your platform is doing programmatic in-game ads on? What would be a game like that? Our audience is probably getting worldwide now, but is probably 90% the US. Yeah. What would be a game title that maybe we could see that's played here that the platform's hitting on?
So from the games I'm allowed to say, there's big companies and like I signed dozens of NDAs with each company. And Ubisoft Trackmania will be the most popular game.
That's Trackmania?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Okay. Cool. Are brands coming to you mentioned this, and so I guess, are you guys developing kind of a platform that might be self-serve for agencies, or is it always going to be brand direct? Are you kind of opening, what's the kind of avenues there for where you see it going for marketers kind of coming to you guys?
Sure. So, brands love innovation and hate to change the way they work, right?
Yes. Well said. Hey, you've been around the agency world. This is what I love. Yeah. Bring us big ideas, and we don't want to do. Let's go back to that one.
Yeah. So we try to make it as easy as possible for them to choose how they want to work with us. Some brands want us to run the campaign from our own DSP and our own platform, of course, with full transparency. And some brands want to run the campaign from like the media bank platform they're already using, if it's a Google or the Trade Desk or all the the popular DSPs. Yeah. So basically, we made sure to support all the media bank platforms, all the ad units, all the creatives, all the, basically everything that we know from a technical perspective, from a buying mechanism, can work different between the buyers, and to support all of those options. So we support 45 different creative formats, because we know that a brand can be really excited to work with us. But if he has 2 creative formats and we don't support them, unfortunately, it will take 2 years to make a campaign happen.
Yeah. Where is eSports, the growth of it, is just so enormous. And, we've been talking a lot about just general in-game, but on the eSports side, the competitive side, within the leagues and all of that, does the mechanism for marketing within your platform work the same, or is that a different kind of more like event one-off structure?
Yeah. So, there's 2 ways of how we have basically touch points with eSport. First, let's differentiate eSport tournaments and game streaming content, right? But it starts from the fact that when we integrate into a game like Trackmania has eSport tournaments, and Trackmania has people who broadcast themselves playing the game on Twitch, on YouTube, and on the streaming platforms. So, and because what we do, we change the texture of the game object with the branded content, now making the branded content part of the game. So if we do a campaign with American Eagle is part of the content of the game. So everywhere the game is, the branded content is going to be. So this opens for us opportunities to offer brands to sponsor eSport tournaments in a very authentic way, instead of putting the logo of the brand in the stadium, to putting it inside the game while the game is played in the tournament.
Yeah.
And that's not only the people who see the game in the physical tournament, it's also will be broadcasted on TV channels and streaming platforms. It will increase the media rights value. So that's one touch point. And so now we can offer eSport leagues and eSport teams to sell to their own sponsorships ads inside the game while they're playing it. So that's one dimension. And the second one is the streaming platform. So we can work with a specific streamer to personalize the content only on his device, only for when he broadcasts, to personalize the branded content to his viewers, to his audience.
Wow.
So this is basically how we can extend, like the branded content to new environments, and to partner with the leagues, the teams, the streamers, and all the ecosystem.
Have you gone to a tournament? I'm curious. Have you been able to go to eSports tournament? What was it like if you've gone to one?
Yeah, first, maybe I'll admit, I wasn't a gamer before we started Anzu. I come from an advertising background. For me, it was just exciting to work with those big brands. But my two co-founders, our chief product and CTO, are both gamers. So for them, it was like, exciting to partner with games that they are playing themselves.
Absolutely.
And there's two different layers of excitement, in my opinion, around eSport tournaments. Number one, the first time you go to a tournament, this is like something that you never experienced, the audience and the excitement and how much they're into it. And it's a phenomena, right?
Yeah.
And the second thing is when you go to games that are maybe harder to understand. So there's games like Rocket League that even if you didn't play the game a lot, you'll pretty quickly understand what the game is about.
I know Rocket League. I'll kick your ass in some Rocket League. Don't mess with me. That's the only game that I could actually play worth anything on the platform.
Yeah.
On Xbox.
But there are games, CS:GO, that are really hard to understand how to play. And for someone coming to an eSport tournament and seeing one of these games, if he doesn't really know exactly what's about, it will just feel like a random connection between what's happening in the game and the audience getting excited, right?
Yeah.
So I think it really depends on the genre of the game.
Yeah. We hear so much about the tournaments. It makes me really want to go to one. They just seem like
when we were able to actually
before
congregate
right
again,
right before we had to stay 6 feet apart.
Yeah, no. We try not to go down that path too much on the podcast, but has COVID impacted you guys' business? It seems to be blowing up esports more than, obviously it's removed the in-person tournaments, which I'm sure is a drag on a lot of the sponsorships and things like that. But at the same time, the growth of playing and the exposure of it in general, I think is just growing. So I bet, how have you guys been impacted if you have?
So 3 impacts, 2 positive and 1 negative. Uh-huh. So let's start with the negative, right? So we can finish positive.
I like it. Yeah. I like you already.
And a lot of the game developers postponed their releases of the game because of COVID. So for example, we finished integration with really big games, and I would be very much excited to give you those names, but because of COVID, they postponed when they will launch the game. So we need to wait for half a year, for 1 year to actually be able to make that happen. And that's a pity, because there is brands waiting in line for those games, and we just need to wait until we can make it happen. So that's something.
Announce them right here on the Radcast, and we won't tell anyone. We promise we'll keep it a secret.
So I have a deal to offer you.
All right.
When we'll be able to announce it, let's regroup and tell your audience. And that's okay. So now let's speak about the
positives. Yeah.
So number one, people are more at home. People are playing more games. Mm-hmm. So there's just more advertising eyeballs on the platform. So like we had a huge growth in our platform just because of the usage really growing up. That's number one. But I think more important to the ecosystem is what happened on the marketer side. And there's two layers to that. One on a practical layer. So sports events are getting canceled. So on the one side, and second, out of home interaction are, less happening these days. So brands are looking for new ways to engage with audiences, and digital and virtual environments are maybe a good way to do that. So gaming took like a main seat around that, because what people do, they or play games or watch Netflix, right? That's basically sums it up.
Yeah.
So that's one thing. So like we saw like in the last 2 months or the first 2 months of COVID, like growth that we didn't see in 10 years in the space. So brands spoke for 5 years about gaming or about even digital, and now for the first time they actually do something. So that's one layer. But I think a bigger important point is the perception points. 3 years ago, almost every brand or agency I would pitch would tell me, listen, this is really cool, but gaming is like geeks locked in their basement. It's not really our audience.
Yeah.
Versus now, like gaming is pop culture, it's pop phenomena, it's a social network, the metaverse world, and everyone gets excited. So I think there is a huge change in perception. I mean, maybe it's a good time to mention WPP, the biggest advertising group in the world, is one of our investors. I got a lot of rejections from them in the early days because I know them for many years, and eventually even they saw that this is coming mainstream, and this will become a big advertising category. Right. So this perception is really positive for us.
That's great. Interesting about WPP. I mean, are they integrate? Is there any kind of integration? Obviously own a lot of ad agencies. Are they integrating with like their media tools? Like is Anzu, like, is that any integration there? Or are they kind of like letting you guys do your thing?
Yeah. I mean, first, it took me some time to understand their complicated structure. Yeah. And that's number one. And number two, like, I mean, of course it was not like a plug and play. So we signed an investment in the day after. So they manage $50 billion of media a year. The day after, budgets are being thrown at us. I remember some of our other investors who so like Beatcraft, the biggest, eSports fund, maybe you heard about them. It's the guy who founded ESL. So he's our other investor. So he doesn't come from advertising. He just told me, listen, we signed the deal with WPP. Let's just allocate 1 or 2% from their 50 billion. And I think it's good. Right. So it doesn't work like that. Right. Yeah. But we integrated into their platforms, into Zaxis, their media buying platform, into their discovery product. And I think now we're in a really strong place, knowing their teams and having the structure to really now growing with them the business, of course, with now all the exclusive inventory coming on board. But I think it's also important to mention that the way we structure the deal, we have no limitations. We work with the other holding groups. There is no board seat, no veto rights. So it can really help us to be very unbiased and agnostic here.
Hey, they want you to sell more ads. They don't care who you sell them to. That would be bad for business. Hey, they want to recoup their investment and make more on top. We got to sell to everybody.
I mean, I promised them X20 on the investment. So let's see.
There we go. Where's this all going, man? What's the future looking like for esports and advertising and marketing? What's in your crystal ball or in your kind of, magic plan?
Yeah. I mean, for 5, 10, 15 years, we saw a lot of movies of people spending time in virtual world, right? So there was a movie like a few years ago, Ready Player One, and there were other movies. And for some reason in real life, that didn't happen. People didn't spend, half of their day in a virtual environment. But I think esports can be a trigger for that to change. And we see that with Fortnite and Roblox and the metaverse concept, and people are starting to consume content inside games, and the game platform is becoming like a social network to chat with the friends, to consume content. So I think the world is going into that direction. And when, the younger audiences who were born into the Fortnite world, when they'll become parents, the industry, they will look on it very different. So I think it's going to be a very digital, virtual world. Maybe it's of course it has a lot of, problems, but I think that's where it's heading. And for marketers, there's really good opportunities of how to engage in that world, because, for me, part of the power of a brand like McDonald's is that in every place in the world, in Zimbabwe, you'll see their sign, right? Now there are younger audiences who don't spend time watching TV, who don't go a lot, traveling the world, and they will be less familiar with those big brands. So brands will need to adapt and find a way of reaching them in an effective way, because those audiences would use ad blockers if they don't like the user experience. So I think there is some challenges and opportunities for brands here.
So we have a wide range of listeners as far as the size of their companies. And this strikes me as going down the path that might actually make it attainable for more medium-sized businesses. You mentioned McDonald's and others, and obviously Pepsi and, these huge brands with millions of dollars in budget, before to like the Verizon deal with FaZe Clan. I mean, like, these are millions of dollar agreements. But this strikes me with your platform as potentially an entry point for more medium-sized brands to get in the game. Literally. And figure out.
I mean, it's exactly about that, because a small brand, most chances is buying platform, is buying media from Google. So take the same platform of where you buy media, take the same creatives you have, take a small budget, and start to advertise in games, and can be localized to what he is looking for. So and I think that's the beauty of how we make these environments accessible and affordable for SMBs.
What's the scale of this right now? So we work with some bigger Southeastern companies in the U.S. Is the scale there in the U.S., on these platforms to make a legitimate programmatic buy that has the scale and reach that you need for like a US based company besides a McDonald's or Pepsi?
Yeah. So, yes. And there is, the ecosystem in our platform from an ecosystem play, 2.7 billion people play at least one game a month. That's 86% of the people connected to the internet. Yeah. So I would say every brand in the world has an overlap with the gaming audience. And the question is, what type of games, sport games versus shooter games, and what type of platforms, Xbox versus mobile, are the right games for that brand? So that's number one. And number two, on our platform, today we serve ads to 150 million people every month. We serve, billions of impressions. US is, of course, our biggest market. So there's already enough, volumes and skin in the game to be attractive for, on the one side, the big brands who want, bigger campaigns, and on the other side, for smaller brands who want a very niche audiences, but still to have enough of traction coming from it.
Is there anything else that you think would be, of interest with, where esports is going, where you guys are going? I mean, anything else as we kind of close out here?
Yeah. First, I can speak a lot about this topic. So of course we can, if there's anyone interested to continue these conversations, of course, we can speak about that. But I mean, I think, and because of all the changes we see in the advertising landscape, so the cookies are dropping and IDFAs and mobile are getting out, and people are using more ad blockers, and what's happening with Facebook, and like the concern around brand safety. And we saw that the same with YouTube. I think there is a need for rethinking of like what's the best way to use each platform and how to play the mix. I would argue that there is a strategy around audio and out of home and social and search and TV. Gaming should be part of the mix from an ad category from perspective. And it's just about doing it right, because gaming is a very, fragmented topic, from working with teams to working with leagues to working with Switch to working with us. There's just a lot of different ways, and there's not a lot of best practices and experts to really navigate that. So I think that's what we're going to see in the next year. But there's still opportunities for brands to be, early adopters and to be innovators in the space. And it's not too late for that. And yeah, this is basically what we do for a living. So
I love it. Last question, because you kind of made me go there. Do the Twitch, to the streaming, companies like Twitch and others come with their hands out to you guys eventually? Because, okay, I'm playing Truckmania and that Pepsi billboard runs and it's suddenly on Twitch and another 200,000 people see it. That wouldn't have, is that factored in?
Yeah. I mean, the short answer is it's complicated. because I think what's important to understand here is the perspective of how each player is coming from. I mean, for me, my partner is the game developer.
Yeah.
For Twitch, his partner is the streamer.
Yep.
Now, if you'd ask, so like Twitch and the streamer are basically building a business on top of what the game is built. In many cases, the game is not really getting money from it. But what Twitch will claim, listen, you should thank us. We are bringing a lot of organic. Yeah, we're promoting you. And then if you'd ask the game, they'll say, hey, fine, we should get a slice from the revenues as well. So it's a complicated topic. And of course, even between Twitch, YouTube, Facebook, and until recently Mixer, there were very different opinions of how each one of these companies see it. And of course, as the game developers are bigger, then they have more control over those relationships versus the smaller ones. And the same with the big streamers and the small streamers. And let's add, to make it even more complicated, the companies who are providing extensions for the streamers out of what the platforms like Twitch are doing. Yeah, so I think it's complicated is a good way to answer it.
I bet. Well, Itamar, it's been a pleasure. I know the listeners will appreciate kind of more of the in-depth marketing side. Anzu sounds like it's got all the potential in the world. And if you're a brand out there thinking about your marketing mix, I think you need to be thinking about gaming.
Itamar, we're going to be holding you to that deal too.
We're going to get the full scoop.
Exactly right.
The official scoop.
Do noted. Yeah.
You'll get an email from me.
We'll get the official breaking news of any of those partnerships. So we'll do it again here as we follow up. And Absolutely. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for having me here.
Hey guys, it's Brian Alford and Riley Clark. We'll see you next time on the Radcast. Follow along at theradcast.com or at the.rad.cast on Instagram. See you then.